prior to you to speak.
Not sure of that.
He's on the yes list.
I'm on lots of lists.
You're right after adjourned.
Fred adjourned.
On my drive in this morning, this epiphany came upon me.
Burning bush or?
No, it wasn't burning, thank goodness. What this does is puts to the town the question as to whether or not they wish to accept what is being proposed. It is putting the town, you know, I'm perfectly in favor of what the intent of the drafters of the initial bill were looking to do. I've never dealt with chapter law, and there's certainly some questions as to whether or not this is the correct avenue to pursue when dealing with chapter law. But it puts the question to the town to make the vote whether or not to accept the language which is in the bill. It creates a second vote.
In other words, we vote yes. If we vote yes on this, then the town has to vote yes.
Yep.
And then that, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
If I may, then after that, then the way your language reads, then the paragraph 1 would no longer apply.
Hmm.
I spoke with Ms. Levinas about this after you brought it up this morning. Unfortunately, the town cannot change chapter law. Answer the truth.
You're enabling the town to change.
We are.
Right, the town cannot do it. The town can't do it without some provision by the legislature at this point, unless you wanted to delete it.
Isn't this really, this amendment, isn't that really saying that this will take effect upon the approval of the town?
Right, as long as,
Instead of saying 60 days after or whatever.
right, you're enabling the town to vote to adopt.
That's probably what it should have said. This will take effect after approval of the town by a
Yeah, I'm
three-fifths
not
vote.
sure that this is really well drafted, but.
Thanks a lot.
No, I mean, the point that Representative Sterling wanted me to make was that the town can't just fix this without the legislature doing something to that chapter law.
Representative Tatro, you would want to speak?
Yeah, this is, I agree with Representative Carson on the whole thing with the, they should have a referendum on their warrant to request this law changed, and presented it that way, so that we knew that the whole town wanted it changed and not just selectmen or, you know, a few other people. Let's see, the 3/5. Does the wording, voters casting a ballot at a town meeting, does that also, would that also include SB2 towns that will be voting not at a town meeting, but at a?
This is only for one town.
Yeah, but it's an SB2 town.
It's an SB2 town.
Yeah.
Well, this says town meeting.
Yeah.
The town meeting is your voting.
Go down.
What?
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Question is, the wording town meeting, is that the same, would that hold true for SB2 town, voted by official ballot?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can go back to your conversation.
Representative Porter.
Okay, I guess I'm really confused because in this amendment, I have two things to say. In the amendment, it says by ballot, section 1, under 370:4, section 1, by ballot of at least 2/3 of the votes cast, if the number of ballots cast shall be at least equal in number to 1/2 of the number of legal voters. It's the same thing that's in the current law.
That's right, yeah, I get it.
Okay, so that should be there, that's number one. And number two, I think before we pass a law saying that the town has to approve the law we pass, I think it would behoove us more to say, the town should let us know they want this and come to us with a request. I think this is, I shouldn't say the word I'm thinking. I think this is the cart before the horse. If the, I'm concerned because in the original 1957 chapter law, we even said in this committee, we don't know why they came to the legislature to enact this law, but they did. So obviously in 1957, the people of RINDGE felt it was important enough to use this procedure that they came to the legislature and asked for a law. Now we're just saying we're going to repeal that law, but the town has not told us that that is what they want. So I really am uncomfortable with this bill as it stands. I'm not comfortable at all with the amendment.
Before I recognize Representative Brown, I'm going to speak. If we look at the original bill that has the crossed out 2/3 and 3/5 written in it, and if the number of ballots shall be equal to the number of 1/2, that's all crossed out. And in 2, it says effective date. What if the effective date said upon adoption by at least 3/5 of the voters? So that the change would not become effective until the town approves the change. Wouldn't that accomplish?
That was my intent, that it become enabling legislation
Right,
to enable the town,
so it would not become effective until the town said okay.
yes.
Here,
Yes.
if I can interject. If you look at the handout that I gave you, 370:5, acceptance of this act is accepted. It says this act shall not be effective until the same is accepted by majority vote. If it was accepted by majority vote, then it should be able to be rescinded by a majority
Yeah.
vote, rather than 3/5,
Right.
if that's what you wish to do. I want to speak some more, but
Okay, Representative Brown?
Well, a couple of things. One is that it wasn't clear to me during the course of the testimony yesterday, my impression that they weren't able to touch this fund at all, but in fact, they are allowed in 370:3 to use the interest, and they have been using the interest apparently in the town. I wasn't aware of that, so why the principal's gotten so big, I don't know, but they haven't been using the interest. The restriction they have on the fund is only for the principal, and maybe everybody else understood that, and I was the only one that didn't, but anyway. I did not understand that yesterday. Second, I really thank Representative Harris for what he tried to do here, and I think that I don't know what was in his mind, but what some of our mind was, we kind of felt like in the end that somebody was trying to pull a fast one. I felt like somebody was trying to pull a fast one on me here. Your arguments, Representative Sterling, are very compelling, but I think that there is some disagreements going on in the town that we weren't aware of until, I have to say subsequently, found out that there's more to this. So I like the idea of this amendment, or your idea seems cleaner, but maybe it would be better yet if they sort of got this thing figured out in RINDGE and then came to us with a clean request.
Representative Edmund?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just, that was my question. I didn't understand that myself. So on the handout, so in 371:1, the original principal was 124,000. And my understanding, no additional principal was added to this fund in the last several decades. But in 373, it says the income from said trust fund shall be used for the reduction of taxes. So why is the principal higher than 120? Why is the fund higher than 125 if the income was going back to tax relief? So the use of principal in section in colon 4, the principal can may be used. Some are, what does it say, all or any part of the principal for capital expenditure. So
Well,
that sounds like 90% of the fund should go back for tax relief, right?
No.
Representative Peterson is is a trustee of the trust fund, and he can probably answer that question.
Thank you. I'm glad we have this today, because this is giving me more information.
Right.
If we read 370:3, income, the income from said trust fund shall be used for reduction of taxes. That's the income of the trust fund. Now, the income, we don't know how they have invested. But if they've invested in, even in the S&P 500, it's been growing to that. At 5%, your money will double every 7 years. You're investing all dividends. So if they've been using the income, they've made it very easy to use the income to reduce people's taxes. But now you go to 370:4, use of principal. They're making it quite difficult to use the principal to go buy something like a piece of property or a Caterpillar tractor or something. And I'm wondering if they did that intentionally.
But aren't we still, I'm sorry.
Representative Kaplan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion that we recess this until next Thursday, and if we can't get a proper amendment at that time, maybe we could just retain the bill, but I do not think we're in a position to vote on this at this time.
The discussion is good. Good to have the discussion.
I'm just saying we should retain it until next week, and we can vote on it.
Go ahead.
Motion to recess a priority motion.
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah.
You would just, your pending motion would be ought to pass.
Pending motion is ought to pass, and I'm just wondering if the motion to recess has got a higher priority.
I believe so.
It's almost like a motion to table.
You
right?
can't, but you can't table in committee, so this is the next best thing.
All right,
Do I have to keep track of the vote?
Sorry.
Do I have to
I'll
take
do a motion.
Yeah.
voice vote, or is it a roll call vote?
A motion to recess, I think it's just a
Up to the
voice
chair.
vote. But the chair, either way.
But before we, since it's not a motion to table, it could be debatable, so, Janie?
Yes, so, yeah, I'm just confused of what the balance of the principal is, because in writing it states that it's $124,000 plus. So that should be the balance today, from what I'm reading.
But it's $1 million. It's over $1 million,
Oh, it's $1 million.
right? Isn't that
It's
what
over
we
$1
were
million.
told?
So, then the
Can I
fund is,
explain?
then my feeling is, looking at this, is that perhaps the fund hasn't been properly managed, and I guess Representative Peterson would know more, but to me, if you make 5 cents over this amount, it goes back to the taxpayers, and it should, that fund should be equal to $124,000. This was, somebody put this there to help the taxpayers, is what I'm seeing. I don't know.
Representative Kaplan, I'm allowing conversation to go on your motion to recess because we may get some idea as to how to
I understand
come up with
that,
an
I
amendment.
understand that, but I just wanted to
Yeah,
put my
and-
motion in there.
Right, and who seconded the motion to recess?
I will.
Okay. Go ahead, Representative Peterson.
I think I can explain that. When you invest money, you can invest it to create income, you can invest it to have what are called capital gains, or to increase in value, or somewhere in between. As I was saying to my learned colleague here, at my age, I'm investing for income, I need the income. At his age, he should be investing for the capital to grow over the years. If that $123,000 was invested, let's say in a house, and that house just sat there, year after year, went up and up and up and up in value, they never got any income from it, but now it's worth $1 million. That's one way it could have increased to $1 million. Depending on what those funds, we don't know, doesn't tell us how those funds were invested. Now, what I'm guessing is, from your comment, that there probably has not been a lot of income generated. Difference between being income generated and being capital gain, it just growing in its own. There's difference, so the principal grows in size, but doesn't create income. And so they probably haven't had a lot of income from it, because it's been growing in size from whatever's been invested in. But again, I think this is very telling. They've made it very easy to use the income to reduce people's taxes. They've made it relatively difficult to use the principal. Whether that was their intent or not, I don't know, but that's what it's saying to me.
Representative Chase.
Excuse me. It seems like this bill should never have came to light in the very beginning. So we're trying to, it sounds like we're trying to fix a mistake. That's my first comment. I had trouble with the amount of money when I heard $1 million and they put 124, and I couldn't correlate the two of those, but I can understand where we're coming from. It depends on where it was invested. Then the other thing is, maybe there was a mistake made along the line and the money never got put into the people's taxes. There was a mistake made in the town of not disseminating that money properly. So, and it could have, that interest could have just been left in there and it kept growing and growing. We don't know, there's too many unanswered questions here. So that's why I think we need to.
Representative Porter?
Is the town of RINDGE in pressing need of the principal from this trust this year? Because if it isn't, then I don't understand why they can't just go back to the townspeople at town meeting next year and ask them if they want to change the rules for this.
Well, if I can answer that.
Representative Sterling?
Every small town is in need of money. I don't know one that doesn't have, has a surplus unless it's Molten Borough, maybe, Wolfboro. But, and this would not take effect, it takes effect upon passage. The next available, unless they call a special town meeting, which I doubt it would be able to get authorization from Superior Court to do. This would not take, the vote wouldn't take place until next March, and then they wouldn't be able to take any money or craft a warrant article out until the following March. So we're talking 2016, 2017.
Okay, if we're going, I'll recognize in a second, but what I'd like to do in my mind is to develop a course of action here, because we're gonna be meeting Tuesday on bills that we haven't heard yet. We're gonna be meeting next Thursday to exec those and this one.
And
So by then, we need an amendment that everybody's gonna agree to, either that or no amendment at all, just kill the bill. I don't know if the amendment that I suggested, which is the effective date, would meet with approval. That would, I think, would accomplish what everybody's looking for. It would allow the town to say, yeah, okay, we approve of that change, or no, we don't. Representative Bigford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question, Mr. Peterson, Representative Peterson perhaps, but if it was $128,000 original principal, does the accumulated interest become principal every year, or does that remain as interest? Because if it stays as interest, they got a lot of money they can spend.
Go ahead, answer.
If I may answer that, there is a difference between creating income and having the body of money there increase in size. Let us say with this money, they bought 1,000 shares of IBM at $100 a share or $10, whatever it is.
Well, I understand investing, but
Okay, but
how is it treated municipally?
Municipally, again, that body can grow in size, but it's unrealized income until you sell whatever that is. So there is no income for them to provide to the town to reduce the taxes. But I think another good question asked here is, if it has gotten to $1 million or so, has someone been in error and